We all want to make money, but I don't think we all want a job. And that's where illegal ways to make money come in. This iceberg is just talking about those, but I want to get it out of the way that this video is in no way condoning anything illegal. Do not do this shit, okay? Look at this video like a crime documentary. You watch a crime documentary not because you want to do it, but because it's interesting to learn about. It's like going to a zoo, we get to learn about the bad things. So don't do anything on this iceberg, okay? Please, it is just fun as fuck to learn about. All right, so you're not gonna break the law? Okay, we can continue. Let's get straight into the iceberg. I'm gonna kind of run straight through layer 1 because it's pretty surface level boring stuff, but then we'll get into the really interesting stuff. So, starting in layer 1 with shoplifting and return fraud. Shoplifting is one of the most basic entry points into illegal income. People usually steal small, high resale items like electronics, makeup, or branded clothing and then sell them online or to pawn shops. Organized shoplifting groups will often hit multiple stores in a day, sometimes using techniques like booster bags, which apparently are lined with foil to block alarms, or distraction tactics to avoid detection. It's low skill, but carries growing risk as more stores install high-res cameras and RFID tracking. And then return fraud takes that one step further. Someone might steal an item, then bring it back for cash or store credit. Others use fake receipts, switch barcodes, or exploit generous return policies. Some fraud rings even use refunders, third parties who charge a fee to fraudulently get a refund on a real or fake order. It used to be common in places like Walmart or Amazon before policies tightened, but it's still used in more niche ways today. Fencing stolen goods. Fencing refers to the act of buying and reselling stolen items, and it's one of the most important middle layers in small-scale criminal economies. A fence will buy stolen goods at a discount, phones, tools, PlayStations, bikes, etc., and then clean them, which is like to remove the tracking, replace parts, or repackage, and then flip them on platforms like Facebook Marketplace, Craigslist, or eBay. Most fences don't steal themselves, but they rely on consistent supply from shoplifters, home burglars, or car break-in crews. This crime is often hard to prove unless there's documentation tying the seller to the theft, which is why fencing operations tend to thrive until someone in the chain slips up. In some cases, stolen goods are mixed with legitimate stock in sketchy pawn shops, corner stores, or flea markets. Larger fences will even ship products out of state or overseas to avoid local heat. Fake checks/mobile deposit scams. Check fraud has evolved a lot. The old method was simple: steal or print a fake check and then cash it in person. Today, scammers use mobile deposit apps. They'll take a photo of a forged or altered check, deposit it into an account, and then withdraw the money before the bank catches on. Often the account is opened with stolen or synthetic identity info so it can be burned after 1 or 2 hits. Some scammers buy checks on the dark web or get them through stolen mail. Others use legitimate checks but wash them, removing ink with chemicals and rewriting the details. There are also quick flip versions where people are paid a cut to let scammers use their bank account for the deposit, without realizing that they'll be liable when it bounces. It's a common entry-level cybercrime because the tools are simple and the banks are slow to verify real/fake funds. But again, guys, do not do this shit, please. Under-the-table work/tax evasion. Working under the table means getting paid in cash without reporting the income. No taxes, no paperwork. It's not always considered criminal on its own, but it becomes illegal when you fail to report that income on your taxes. This is extremely common in fields like landscaping, day labor, cleaning, childcare, construction, and even some parts of the adult industry. The workers and employers both benefit. One gets quick cash and the other avoids payroll tax. Some people also offer freelance services like haircutting, tattoos, or home repairs, all unlicensed and untaxed. If the scale is small, it rarely triggers legal action, but it adds up when someone starts making thousands a month and avoids paying anything to the IRS. The risk increases if that money is used to apply for loans, government benefits, or anything that requires income verification. And also, guys, I promise we're getting to drug dealing. Just wait. But again, in a more seriously, these things are not good. This is just a fun documentary and it's interesting, but these things are not good to do. Ticket and ID bootlegging. This includes forging or copying concert tickets, parking passes, student IDs, or other access-related items. With modern ticket apps and QR codes, bootlegging physical tickets is less common, but Some people will print convincing fakes for events that don't scan well, like local clubs, bars, or general admission venues. Others exploit event resellers by mass purchasing and flipping tickets using bots, which is legal in some places, illegal in others depending on anti-scalping laws. Fake ID production also falls under this umbrella. College kids or underage buyers will pay anywhere from $50 to $150 for a realistic looking ID, usually printed from templates available online. Selling these is a felony in most states, especially if it involves identity theft, like copying a real person's info. Some operations do this at scale using PVC card printers and Photoshop templates. Not high-tech, but good enough to pass in dim lighting. Petty drug sales. Selling weed is still illegal in a lot of states and is technically a federal crime even where it's decriminalized. Small-scale dealers usually flip eighths or grams to friends or classmates, often buying in bulk from a local plug. Many rely on texting or Snapchat to manage orders, but more organized ones might have dedicated menus and same-day delivery setups. Even in legal states, selling without a license is punishable, especially if it crosses state lines. Prescription pills are another common entry-level market. People with access to Adderall, Xanax, or Percocet might sell extras to classmates or workers. These are more dangerous to sell than weed because they're Schedule II or higher, and distribution without a prescription is a serious felony. Many users think of this as a casual hustle, but the risk ramps up fast if someone overdoses or law enforcement traces a supply chain. Many users think of this as a casual hustle, but the risk ramps up fast if someone overdoses or law enforcement traces a supply chain. And that was layer 1, guys. Let's get into layer 2. Also, guys, if you're still here and you want to support the channel, you can subscribe, follow my Instagram, and I even have a Discord where we can talk and hang out. It's actually really active in there. I'm always talking and shit, and it's always fun, but let's get into layer 2. Credit card skimming / cloning. This method involves copying the data off someone's credit or debit card without them knowing, and then using that data to make a fraudulent purchase or clone a physical card. The most common setup is a skimmer, a tiny device installed in ATMs, gas pumps, or point-of-sale terminals that captures card data as it's swiped. Many also include a hidden pinhole camera or fake keypad to grab the pin. Once the data is collected, it's usually downloaded and encoded onto a blank magnetic stripe card using a $200 piece of hardware called a writer. This should actually happen to some people close to me, dude, and this is like sad, bro. Online versions are even more common now. Phishing pages and malware grab card info during online transactions. Once stolen, the data can be used directly or sold in dumps on dark web marketplaces. Some fraudsters keep it simple, using stolen info to buy gift cards or electronics to resell them. Others operate cloning rings with multiple runners and burners. The fraud is hard to trace in real time, but if you're caught with the gear or stolen cards, the charges can stack fast. Catalytic converter theft rings. Catalytic converters are valuable because they contain precious metals like platinum, rhodium, and palladium. Prices for these metals have skyrocketed in the last decade, making converters worth anywhere from $100 to over $1,000 depending on the make and model. Thieves use portable saws to cut them off parked cars, especially SUVs and trucks, which sit higher off the ground and are easier to access. A single thief can hit several vehicles in one night, but full rings operate much bigger. In some cities, there are dedicated crews that hit entire parking lots, then sell the parts to unscrupulous scrapyards or metal recycling centers that don't ask questions. Toyota Priuses, Hondas, and certain trucks are prime targets because of the high metal content. Some rings even ship bulk converters across state lines or overseas for processing. Because they're untraceable and not etched with like the VIN numbers, it's hard to prove theft unless caught in the act. But states are tightening laws and making resale more difficult. Piracy hustles. Streaming software. This isn't just about torrenting a movie anymore. It's about monetizing piracy. Some people set up entire operations reselling cracked software licenses like Windows keys, Adobe, and video editors, bootleg DVDs, or pirated textbooks. Others host streaming websites with thousands of users watching movies or live sports, making money from ads or paid memberships. These sites also often steal bandwidth or server time through compromised infrastructure. A big one right now is IPTV. People buy or build custom streaming boxes loaded with pirated live TV into movies, then sell them to customers as a cable alternative for a flat fee. Some sellers even run their own IPTV services, reselling bandwidth from a master server with cracked channel feeds. These setups can bring in thousands a month before they get taken down. Enforcement is spotty, and most pirates just start over with new domains or server hosts when they're shut down. But the moment you're taking money, it crosses into serious legal territory, especially under the DMCA or federal wire fraud. Snap/EBT fraud. S&AP PPP or SNAP or Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program benefits are issued through the EBT, or Electronic Benefit Transfer Cards, which work like debit cards for buying food. The fraud happens when people illegally sell their benefits, typically trading $100 worth of EBT credit for $50 to $70 in cash. This is most commonly done at corner stores, small grocers, or ethnic markets where the cashier agrees to ring up fake transactions and pocket a cut. In some cases, no goods are exchanged at all. The store simply swipes the card, then gives cash under the table. On the organized level, entire stores exist to launder EBT funds. The store collects thousands in benefit transactions each month, often inflated or fake, and uses that to cash out clean money from the state. Some operations also involve identity theft, stealing or buying legitimate EBT card numbers and PINs to drain funds. It's a serious federal crime, and the USDA conducts sting operations targeting both users and retailers. Penalties include prison time and permanent disqualification from receiving benefits, but enforcement is uneven depending on the scale. Fake rental or job postings. This scam plays off desperation, usually targeting people who are broke, unemployed, or urgently searching for a place to live. The setup is simple. A scammer posts a fake job or rental listing on Craigslist, Indeed, Facebook, or local housing boards. The listing looks real, often copied from legitimate ads, but the goal is to get a deposit, application fee, or personal information. For rentals, they'll claim to be out of town and ask for a security deposit via Zelle, Cash App, or Western Union to reserve the place, and then once paid, they disappear. Job scams often involve fake remote work or warehouse gigs, asking applicants to send their ID, social security number, or even bank info under the guise of onboarding. Some take it further, sending a fake check to the victim and asking them to buy equipment or send part of it back. A classic overpayment scam. Victims don't realize that they've been scammed until the check bounces or no one shows up to give them keys. These scams have surged in recent years, especially post-COVID when remote work and housing shortages made people more vulnerable. Social engineering scams. Social engineering refers to manipulating people into giving up confidential info or doing something that they shouldn't. It's not about hacking software, it's about hacking people. A common version is the tech support scam. This one's obvious. Someone calls or emails pretending to be from Microsoft, Amazon, or your bank, warning you about suspicious activity. The goal is to get remote access to your device or trick you into logging into a fake version of a real website. From there, they steal passwords, install malware, or siphon money directly. Another version is the grandparent or relative scam, where someone calls pretending to be a family member in trouble, jailed, injured, or stranded, and urgently asks for money. Delivery scams are also on the rise. Fake text or emails about a missed package link to phishing pages designed to steal login credentials or card info. These schemes are often run from call centers overseas with fake US caller IDs and scripts tailored to different age groups. The success rate is low per attempt, but the volume is so high that the profits are massive. And with that, we're going into layer 3. Here we go. This is getting into the real serious crimes. Synthetic identity fraud. This is one of the most complex and fast-growing types of financial fraud. It works by combining real and fake information to create a brand new identity. The most common method is to take a real social security number, often belonging to a child, elderly person, or someone with no credit history, and attach it to a fake name, fake birthday, and fake address. This new person has no history, but that's the point. The scammer then starts applying for small credit lines to build up a fake credit score over time. Once that synthetic profile is trusted by banks or lenders, it can be used to take out loans, get high-limit credit cards, or even rent properties and vehicles, all under an identity that technically doesn't exist. In some cases, the scammer busts out by maxing everything out and walking away with tens of thousands before the credit bureaus realize that something's wrong. This type of fraud is hard to detect because there's no real victim until the bank realizes the person they lent money to isn't traceable. It's been used by criminal organizations, data brokers, and loan operators alike. Unemployment and COVID relief fraud. Between 2020 and 2022, governments around the world issued massive amounts of emergency relief, unemployment benefits, PPP loans, EIDL loans, and state-level grant programs. This opened the door to one of the biggest fraud waves in history. In the US alone, estimates suggest that $100 to $400 billion in fraudulent claims were paid out during the pandemic. Scammers used stolen identities, fake business names, and forged documents scams to apply for relief in bulk. Unemployment benefits were especially easy to exploit. Scammers would buy or steal SSNs, submit jobless claims in multiple states, and have the debit cards mailed to P.O. boxes, vacant apartments, or even Airbnbs rented under fake names. The same was done with small business loans. People invented companies, inflated payrolls, or created fake tax records to qualify for tens of thousands in PPP funds. Once paid, the money was often laundered through crypto, gift cards, or cash-heavy businesses. Some scams were so large they funded luxury cars, homes, and travel before arrests started ramping up in 2022. But still, much of the stolen money was never recovered. Darknet drug vending. Selling drugs online isn't new, but darknet marketplaces took it to another level. Starting with Silk Road in 2011 and later Empire Market, Alphabet, and others, these platforms allowed anonymous vendors to list drugs like MDMA, LSD, ketamine, heroin, and fentanyl using encrypted access via the Tor network. Payments were made in Bitcoin or Monero, and shipping was done through regular mail, often with vacuum-sealed packaging, stealth wrapping, like hiding inside electronics, and multiple layers of protection. Top vendors operated like small businesses. They had customer service, return policies, reviews, and stealth packaging techniques that evolved constantly to avoid detection. Many used fake names and return addresses that pointed to real businesses or government offices as a decoy. Law enforcement eventually caught up. Silk Road was shut down in 2013 and Alphabet in 2017, with many arrests tied to OPSEC failures, like reusing usernames or logging in without Tor, which is just so stupid, bro. Like, how are you that dumb? But they are fucking dumb because they broke the law, so don't break the law. Still, the model lives on through private markets, invite-only forums, and Telegram groups. Some vendors have moved fully to decentralized services using dead drops or local couriers to avoid the postal system entirely. Fake charities or grant scams. This type of fraud involves posing as a charitable organization to solicit donations, apply for grants, or both. The easiest version is a fake GoFundMe, setting up a page with a tragic story and stealing the sympathy money. But the real money comes from pretending to be a registered nonprofit. Scammers create websites, tax IDs, and even fake social media presence to make their group look legitimate, then apply for government grants, disaster relief, or corporate donations that are meant for real nonprofit. Another version involves piggybacking off of real tragedies, natural disasters, school shootings, or humanitarian crises, and then setting up copycat fundraising pages or cold calling campaigns. They collect the money and then disappear before donors realize that it never went to the intended cause. On the more technical side, scammers also apply for nonprofit tax status under false pretenses, and then funnel donations or grants directly into personal accounts. These scams are difficult to shut down quickly because they rely on paperwork and public trust, both of which are slow to verify at scale. Dropshipping scams / fake stores. Legit dropshipping, even though the people who do it are usually losers, is when a seller takes orders online and has the product shipped directly from a third-party supplier. The scam version skips the fulfillment step entirely. Scammers create clean-looking websites or social media storefronts, usually built with Shopify or similar platform, and lists trending products at low prices. Customers pay, they get a confirmation email, and then nothing. No product ever arrives, or if it does, it's a low-quality knockoff from a totally different source. Some fake stores go further by using stolen product photos from AliExpress or Amazon, then taking in hundreds of orders before nuking the site. Others offer bogus tracking numbers to stall refund requests, knowing customers will eventually give up or miss the chargeback window. These scammers rotate domain names and branding constantly, making them really hard to pin down. It's especially common with fake clothing brands, tech gadgets, or weight loss products, anything buzzy that generates impulse buys. Insurance scams. And for this one, I have a special guest, Slippin' Jimmy, to cover this one, because he knows more about it than I do. No, dude, I wish, bro. How cool would that be? Anyway. These schemes involve faking or staging an injury to collect money from an insurance claim. Slip and fall fraud is one of the most common types. Someone stages a fall in like a grocery store or a restaurant, sometimes using a water bottle or oil to slick the floor beforehand. They claim to be injured, get medical treatment, and sue the business. Some scammers do this multiple times in different cities using fake names or ID variations to avoid getting like flagged. Auto insurance fraud includes everything from staging fake accidents, like brake checking someone on purpose, to exaggerating damage after a minor crash. More advanced rings involve corrupt doctors, chiropractors, or body shops who inflate injury reports, fake x-rays, or bill for unnecessary repairs. There are even cases where people insure junk cars for high value, then torch them for a payout. Fraud like this costs the insurance insurance industry billions a year, and while individual payouts might be small, the cumulative impact is huge. Loyalty points/airline miles fraud. Most people don't realize loyalty programs are highly vulnerable to exploitation. Airline miles, hotel points, and credit card rewards are often stored in accounts that lack pretty strong security. Hackers breach weak logins or use leaked credentials from unrelated sites to gain access, then transfer or redeem the points for gift cards, flights, or electronics. It's low-risk theft. If caught, the punishment is usually lighter than direct financial fraud. Some scammers also exploit loopholes in how miles or points are rewarded. For example, they'll book fully refundable flights or hotel stays to trigger bonus points and then cancel the bookings but keep the rewards. Others automate purchases and returns on retail sites that offer point kickbacks, effectively farming rewards for profit. The resale value of miles varies depending on the program, but some black market brokers exist that will convert stolen or farmed miles into cash for a fee. Mail theft rings. Mail theft is a key part of identity and financial fraud. Thieves target apartment complex, rural routes, or business districts where they can grab high volumes of incoming or outgoing mail. They look for checks, tax documents, credit card offers, and government correspondence. Once a check is found, it can be washed, the ink chemically removed and rewritten with a new payee and amount, and then deposited into a mule account. Stolen mail is also used to piece together personal info for identity theft. Names, addresses, bank names, and even account numbers. Some rings specifically target USPS collection boxes with master keys, called arrow keys, which are highly sought after on the black market. Arrow keys? I'm pretty familiar with that. I'm a gamer. I use the arrow keys all the time. I don't like WASD. Others will bribe or infiltrate postal workers to gain access. Fraud from stolen mail is often slow to detect, especially where accounts are opened in someone else's name and used for fraud before the victim even knows what happened. Alright, that was layer 3, guys. Layer 4 is gonna be even more interesting, so buckle up. This one gets actually this next one is the one where this video might get taken down. So wish me luck. And starting in layer 4, we're gonna start with ransomware gangs. Ransomware gangs operate like criminal tech startups. Instead of robbing banks physically, they infect a company's network with malware that locks access to everything, like financials, emails, systems, backups, and then demand cryptocurrency in exchange for restoring it. What makes them different from solo hackers is the structure. These are teams, often international, with coders, recruiters, negotiators, and customer service reps. They offer ransomware as a service where less skilled criminals can rent their software and split profits. Revil and Conti are two of the biggest names in this space. Revil, linked to Russia, hit corporations like JBS and Kaseya with multi-million-dollar demands. Conti once published a leaked internal manual revealing salary structures, HR documents, and even performance bonuses. These groups also use double extortion. They don't just lock your files, they steal them first, so even if you recover the data, they can still leak sensitive info unless you pay up. Attacks often begin with phishing emails or exploiting vulnerabilities in VPNs and remote desktop tools. Once inside, they use common IT tools like Cobalt Strike or PSExec to move laterally through networks. Ransoms can range from $50,000 to tens of millions. Victims include hospitals, police departments, oil pipelines, and city governments. Most groups operate from countries that don't extradite, so Western law enforcement can't touch them. Crackdowns do happen. The US recovered some of the Colonial Pipeline ransom, but many groups simply rebrand and come back under a new name. Human trafficking. Human trafficking isn't just about forced sex work. It involves labor trafficking, child exploitation, organ removal, and marriage fraud. It affects every continent and often hides in plain sight. Victims can be recruited through false promises, sold by their own families, or kidnapped outright. Once inside the system, they're moved across borders or trapped domestically with no way out, either through debt, confiscated documents, or threats of violence. Labor trafficking is rampant in industries like mining, especially cobalt and gold, fishing, especially in Southeast Asia, agriculture, and textiles. Victims work 12 to 16 hours a day for little or no pay, often under surveillance and in unsanitary, dangerous conditions. Some are even forced to work at sea for years, unable to escape. On the sexual exploitation side, women and girls make up the majority. Brothels, massage parlors, and online escort ads are the front, but the reality often involves beatings, rape, forced drug use and isolation. Countries like the US, UK, and Australia are often destination countries, meaning victims are trafficked into them, while places like India, Nigeria, Cambodia, and Ukraine are often source or transit hubs. Some victims are trafficked internally within their own country, especially indigenous or undocumented people. Even refugee camps in war zones like Syria or Sudan are frequent target zones for recruitment. Profits from human trafficking exceed $150 billion annually. In many cases involve complicit officials or law enforcement who are bribed to look away. Dude, if you're like one of the law enforcement or officials who look the other way, there's a special place in hell, bro. Like, holy fuck. God, okay. Arms trafficking and ghost guns. Illegal arms trafficking is about moving weapons across borders without licenses or oversight. That includes pistols, rifles, grenades, explosives, and even anti-aircraft systems. Most of this activity is driven by demand from militias, criminal organizations, or rebel groups in unstable regions. Eastern Europe, Southeast Asia, and Africa are key hubs, and a lot of surplus weapons from past wars, like the Soviet-Afghan War or Balkan conflicts, are still circulating today. In the US, ghost guns are the domestic version. These are firearms built from kits or 3D printed components that bypass background checks and have no serial numbers. They're legal to build for personal use in many states, but illegal to sell without a license, which is a rule that's often ignored. Criminals like them because they're untraceable, cheap to make, and easy to use. Some gangs have even set up ghost gun workshops using basic machinery and online tutorials. On the international level, arms traffickers use fake documents and end-user certificates to ship weapons disguised as farm equipment, medical supplies, or industrial parts. Corrupt border agents or military officials are often part of the operation. Some networks even traffic weapons alongside drugs or humans using the same smuggling routes. The line between private arms dealing and state-sanctioned arms exports can blur, especially when weapons accidentally end up in the hands of warlords or paramilitaries. Wildlife and exotic pet smuggling. The illegal wildlife trade moves rare and endangered animals, dead or alive, across borders for profit. Some are used for medicine, like pangolin scales or rhino horn, others for food, like exotic meats, and others as pets, tigers, parrots, reptiles, monkeys. Live animals are often crammed into plastic containers, suitcases, or hidden compartments with high mortality rates during transport, but the survivors can sell for thousands, especially in countries with elite buyers. On the medicine side, traditional Chinese medicine is one of the largest drivers. Rhino horn is falsely believed to cure ailments like fever or impotence. Tiger bones are boiled down to make wine. Bear bile is farmed in cruel conditions for use in herbal tonics. All of this persists despite having no scientific basis. It's driven by cultural beliefs and the status symbol of using rare animal products. For exotic pets, YouTube and Instagram have made things worse. People see influencers with pet foxes, slow lorises, or rare birds and want one themselves, not realizing the supply chain involves poaching and brutal shipping conditions. In the US, buyers can get exotic pets through legal loopholes in some states or via shady brokers who pretend the animals are captive bred. Even when caught, penalties are often minor compared to drug trafficking, making this a low-risk, high-reward trade. It's fucked up, dude, honestly. Next up, we have Mr. Beast / Logan Paul. Organized crypto scams / rug pulls. Crypto opened the door to fraud at scale with zero middlemen. One of the most common forms is the rug pull. Scammers create a new token, pump it through influencer hype, fake partnerships, and paid YouTube shills, then pull all the liquidity once enough people invest. The token crashes to zero and the creators vanish, usually through a decentralized swap platform like PancakeSwap or Uniswap, where no KYC is required. This happened with tokens like the Squid Game coin, which went from 2,800 to $0 in minutes. Another common scheme is honeypot tokens, coins that can be bought but not sold. Buyers see the price going up, try to get in, and realize too late that the smart contract is coded to trap their funds. Outside of outright scams, there are also pump and dump groups on Telegram or Discord that coordinate mass buying of a low-cap coin, then dump it on latecomers. On a more technical level, scammers also run phishing sites that mimic real wallets, like MetaMask or Phantom, to steal seed phrases or use hacked Discord servers to drop fake mint links during NFT launches. Once inside your wallet, they can drain your funds instantly. Because the blockchain is public and permanent, the theft is visible, but since most wallets are anonymous and mixers like Tornado Cash exist, recovering the funds is nearly impossible. Money laundering with shell corps and real estate. This is one of the most stable and low-risk ways to clean large amounts of dirty money. Shell companies, entities that exist only on paper, are used to send funds between jurisdictions without triggering suspicion. By faking invoices, loans, or consulting contracts, traffickers or corrupt elites can justify moving millions between banks. The cleaned money is then used to buy real estate, often under anonymous LLCs. No one questions when a Delaware company buys a Miami condo with $5 million in cash. These purchases can sit as long-term assets or be flipped later to turn illicit money into fully legal profit. The US, UK, and Canada are hot zones for this because laws don't require transparency on true ownership. The only reason the public even knows how bad it is, leaks like the Panama Papers and Pandora Papers. Otherwise, it's all hidden in plain sight. Fake passports and citizenship rings. This one's pretty fast. People pay tens of thousands for passports that are either forged, altered, or issued corruptly. Some are real documents printed on stolen blanks, often with fake names and birth dates. Others are real but fraudulently issued by bribed officials, especially in countries with weak oversight. Caribbean nations and parts of the Balkans have been involved in these scandals. Buyers include fugitives, traffickers, sanctioned elites, and spies. Fuel theft, oil pipeline tapping, diesel smuggling. Fuel theft is huge in places where gasoline and diesel are heavily subsidized or trafficked across borders. In Mexico, cartels tap Pemex oil pipelines. They dig underground, drill into active lines, and siphon the fuel into tankers. The stolen gas is then resold on the black market or even laundered through corrupt gas stations. It's called witchall, and it's dangerous as hell. Explosions from poorly done taps have killed dozens. In other countries, gangs smuggle diesel across borders to exploit price differences. In Nigeria, entire criminal operations hijack oil from the Niger Delta and ship it to offshore via fake manifests. These thefts can fund militias, corrupt officials, or even terror cells. Fuel theft doesn't really get media attention, but globally it's a multi-billion-dollar crime economy with serious geopolitical implications. And that was Layer 4, guys. Layer 5 is gonna be, pretty scary and cool, so strap in. Organ trafficking networks. Organ trafficking is one of the darkest real-world black markets, and it's still happening. Victims are usually poor, desperate, or completely unwilling. Some sell a kidney under pressure for $1,000 to $5,000, while the buyer, often a foreign transplant tourist, pays $100,000 or more. But in many cases, the organ is taken without true consent, through coercion, deception, or outright kidnapping. There's evidence of organ theft in conflict zones, prisons, and refugee camps. India has had several major scandals involving illegal kidney rackets, especially in rural sites. In 2007, a Gurgaon-based operation was uncovered where hundreds of laborers were tricked into giving up kidneys. In China, the situation is even more severe. Reports and testimony suggest that political prisoners, especially Falun Gong members and Uyghur Muslims, have had organs forcibly harvested to fuel a booming transplant industry. Chinese officials deny it, but multiple independent investigations say otherwise. Kosovo was also tied to post-war black market organ harvesting during the late 1990s, with some involvement by paramilitary groups. Trafficking networks span multiple countries. One handles recruitment, another does extraction, and a third coordinates transplants in complicit hospitals. Brokers, doctors, and officials are often paid off. There are legal gray areas too. Some people travel to countries like Pakistan or Egypt for willing donors, even though money exchanges hands and no regulation exists. Because the buyers are often wealthy or politically connected, very few arrests ever lead to convictions, which is so sad. And most victims are left with no medical care, legal recourse, or even proof that it even happened. Fuck, dude. Ghost payroll schemes. Ghost payroll fraud is when fake employees, or real people who don't work, are placed on a company or government's paycheck, collecting salaries month after month. The money usually goes to whoever set it up, a corrupt official, HR insider, or supervisor with payroll access. In public institutions like school systems or city departments, these scams can run for years because no one really checks deeply into employee rosters. In 2022, a school district in Kenya uncovered over 1,200 ghost teachers. In the US, several city governments and transit agencies have been caught paying employees who haven't worked in years. In the private sector, shell companies and subcontractors can be used to hide ghost workers, making it look like a third party is providing labor when it's all just paper. The theft isn't just financial, it inflates budgets, skews performance data, and diverts resources. And it often happens at scale in unstable governments where oversight is weak or complicit. The scheme is low profile, hard to spot unless someone audits thoroughly, and rarely prosecuted unless it becomes a political scandal. Art and antiquities laundering. The art world is a perfect vehicle for laundering money. Prices are subjective, transactions are often private, and no one questions when a painting trades hands for millions. Criminals exploit this by buying high-value art with illicit money, storing it in offshore free ports or private vaults, then reselling it later for clean profit. Since artwork isn't regulated like securities or real estate, there's little due diligence on buyers, sellers, or pricing, making it ideal for cartels, oligarchs, and corrupt officials. Antiquities laundering adds another layer. Stolen artifacts from war zones like Iraq, Syria, Libya, or rooted archaeological sites are smuggled out, given forged provenance papers, and sold through auction houses or galleries. Museums, private collectors, and universities have all been caught purchasing artifacts with fake origins. Once an item has been legitimized, quote-unquote, through a sale or exhibit, it becomes hard to trace and its value rises. Even when recovered, artifacts pass through so many hands, many shielded by shell companies, that prosecution is nearly impossible. Major scandals have involved institutions like the Metropolitan Museum of Art and individuals like the art dealer Subhash Kapoor, who was accused of running a $100 million looting operation. The overlap between white-collar collectors and criminal networks keeps the problem alive, and regulation in the art market remains almost non-existent. Trade-based money laundering. This method moves dirty money by disguising it as international trade. A cartel might overpay a friendly company in another country for something like industrial parts or used machinery when in reality no goods are shipped or the items are worthless. On paper, it looks like a normal business transaction. The money flows through customs, banking systems, and ports, appearing clean at the other end. Another version is under-invoicing, reporting $10,000 worth of goods when you actually sent $100,000. The missing $90K is parked overseas. Shell companies and layered shipping routes can make this even harder to detect. It's especially common in high-cash industries like textiles, seafood, and scrap metal. Banks and customs officials rarely verify whether the trade was real, making it ideal for large-scale laundering. State-sponsored bribery rings. In some countries, bribery isn't a side operation, it's state policy. Governments use business deals, loans, or foreign aid packages as a front to funnel bribes to foreign politicians and officials. China's Belt and Road Initiative has faced allegations of this. Infrastructure deals are handed out in exchange for political loyalty or access to resources, with inflated contracts quietly paying off key decision makers. The 1MDB scandal in Malaysia is a well-known case. Billions were siphoned from a state fund into luxury real estate, jewelry, and even Hollywood movies, with US banks, Gulf royals, and Malaysian politicians all tied in. Some regimes also fund soft bribery through think tanks, lobbying, or campaign donations in other countries. The goal isn't always cash, it can also be influence, and since the actors are sovereign governments, enforcement becomes politically impossible unless someone defects or leaks documents. Deep Ponzi schemes. Madoff BitConnect. A Ponzi scheme pays old investors with money from new ones, pretending it's profit. It only collapses when new money stops coming in. Most are small and crash quickly, but the deep ones run for years because they blend into legit finance. Bernie Madoff ran the biggest example in history, over $60 billion in fake returns propped up by fake account statements and investor trust. He was a former NASDAQ chairman and used his status to avoid scrutiny. Even regulators missed the fraud for over a decade despite multiple warnings. BitConnect is the crypto version. It promised massive returns through a trading bot that didn't exist. The coin's value was pumped through hype and affiliate marketing until regulators stepped in. At its peak, BitConnect had a market cap of over 2.5 billion. When it collapsed, people lost everything, especially those who took out loans or convinced friends and families to buy in. The creators mostly vanished or avoided serious charges. Pharmaceutical shell companies. This happens in two major ways. First, fake or hollow pharma companies get licensed to manufacture or distribute drugs. They then bill Medicare or Medicaid for treatments that were never provided, sometimes using real patient names pulled from stolen medical records. Billing scams like this have cost US taxpayers billions. It's hard to catch because the paperwork looks legitimate and investigations lag far behind. Second, there's the manufacturing and distribution of research chemicals or fentanyl analogs. Some of these shell companies operate legally on paper, claiming to sell substances for laboratory use only, but in reality they're producing synthetic opioids or designer drugs that skirt drug laws by being one molecule different from controlled substances. These operations often use LLCs, drop addresses, and overseas labs, like especially in China or India, with crypto payments and rebranded websites that rotate constantly. And that was Layer 5. Guys, thank you for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed. If you made it this far, you're great. Yeah. Good night, everyone. I really hope you enjoyed. Thank you for making it this far, and sweet dreams.